Welcome to the FCAN webinar, Stay, How Community Collaboration Helps Students Stay in College by Meeting Life Needs. On this webinar, we will be introducing you to a newly launched Destination Graduation Toolkit that can help you replicate this successful program. I'm your host, Kathy McDonald, Assistant Director for Network Partnerships with the Florida College Access Network. I'm thrilled to welcome on our call today guest presenter Karen Rohena, Emergency Assistance Program Manager for the Heart of Florida United Way, where she oversees programs and funding dedicated at supporting working families when they encounter unexpected crises. Before her current role, Karen worked for the Heart of Florida United Way as a 211 crisis hotline intern and as a destination graduations case manager. Karen earned her AA from Valencia College and a bachelor's and master's in social work from the University of Central Florida. I'm also thrilled to welcome on our call today guest presenter, Dr. Jan Lloyd Leslie, who is the Associate Vice President for Student Development at Seminole State College of Florida, where she oversees departments that support students' learning and growth outside of the classroom. Previous to Seminole State College, Dr. Lloyd worked in various higher education institutions and roles over the past 25 years, including the University of Central Florida, the University of Georgia, and the University of South Florida, Lakeland. Dr. Lloyd earned an AA from Valencia College, a BA in communication, and an MA in student personnel services from the University of Central Florida, as well as a PhD in counseling and student personnel services from the University of Georgia. Now, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started today. We welcome your questions. Our FCAN's philosophy is we're all about learning and growing together, so please feel free to send your questions over. You can put them in the question box that should be on the right side in your dashboard if you're viewing from a desktop computer. We'll allot time at the end of today's call for your questions, but you can submit questions at any time, and I encourage you to do so. We would also love it if you'd share what you're learning on social media. Our FCAN team will be on Twitter throughout this webinar, and you can find us at FL College Access and find our presenter partners today at Seminole State and at HFUF. Please use the hashtag FCAN and the hashtag Destination Graduation so that we can find you. Okay. Finally, this webinar is being recorded. Feel free to share the slides after our presentation. Florida College Access Network, for those of you who are not familiar with us, is our mission is to create and strengthen a network that supports communities to improve college and career readiness, access, and completion for all students. Our vision is to see at least 60% of working-age Floridians hold a high-quality post-secondary degree or credential by the year 2025. We do our work in three primary ways. The first is through our local college access networks. You're going to hear more about those today because we'll have an example for you, but these are cross-sector strategic alliances that collaborate to provide more support for student success. The second way is through our research, data, and policy, where we act as a clearinghouse on data in the college and career readiness space. And finally, through our statewide initiatives that help provide schools and community organizations resources to help students plan for their future. To get us started today, let me just do a little bit of setup for us. Many of you already know that students today struggle with life needs that impact their ability to be successful in college. These life needs extend beyond the classroom to include things like food and housing insecurity, transportation challenges, legal aid needs, and dependable childcare. Research in this area is still in its infancy, but the Wisconsin Hope Lab has been leading the way in helping more of us understand the problem in our midst. In 2018, they updated their study of basic needs insecurity to now include university students. The earlier study focused on community college students. This latest report includes input from 43,000 students at 66 institutions across 20 states and Washington, D.C. What both studies reveal is that food and housing insecurity on college campuses is a significant public health issue. The findings show that about a third of university students and around 50% of community college students are food and housing insecure. Take that in for a minute. This afternoon, when you cross your campus and you see all these students moving between classes, recognize that a third to a half of the students you're seeing on campus right now are struggling with these basic life needs. Since this latest study was larger than the prior studies, they were able to disaggregate some of the data. I encourage you to read the full report because there's a lot of great information in there that we don't have time to cover today. Some of what they show is that the following student segments had higher incidences for basic need insecurity. For instance, students who are homosexual or bisexual, female students, former foster youth, and students of color all experience higher incidences of food insecurity and housing insecurity. Because of these struggles, students that are food and housing insecure are more likely to be working while in college, which can impact their ability to finish a credential. It's also noteworthy that so many times when we think of basic life need insecurity, we think of our low-income or Pell Grant students, and yet even those students who did not receive the Pell Grant still showed alarming levels of food and housing insecurity. We often hear the mythology around the poor, starving college student living off ramen noodles as if it's somehow quaint, and yet this is not at all a laughing matter for those who go hungry each day that they're in school. And terminology like couch surfing can make it sound like it's fun to be homeless when clearly it isn't. The need is real. Basic needs insecurities are associated with poor academic outcomes. That's why I'm so excited to welcome on our call today Karen and Jan, who have not only put together Destination Graduation, they have proven the concept over several years and have now put together a toolkit so that other colleges and community partners can replicate their success. So to get you all participating so we can hear where you see the challenges, I'd like you to join in on this poll. What's the biggest challenge in meeting students' non-academic life needs that can affect their success? This poll is set up where you can answer with multiple answers. So is it understanding what the most pressing student needs are? So for instance, maybe you haven't taken a survey yet. Is it getting leadership buy-in? Finding the money to fund emergency aid? Identifying the right community partners to work with, and or working through those partnership logistics. Let's just give you a couple more seconds to vote here. Okay, last, going once, going twice. Okay, I'm gonna close out that survey. Here we go, close it out, and let me share with you all. So as you'll see, finding the money to fund emergency aid was the top winner, but also understanding what the most pressing student needs are. So that's great to hear. And then finding the right community partners. Great, great. So thank you all for sharing and helping us understand, at least going in, what some of what you'd like to learn today. So with that, let me turn it over to Karen, who will get us started on what is Destination Graduation and what have you learned along the way? Karen?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can. You sound great.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Rohena. I'm the Emergency Assistance Programs Manager at Harvard Florida United Way, and one of the programs we manage is Destination Graduation. Destination Graduation is a collaboration between Heart of Florida United Way, Seminole State College of Florida, and the Suntrust Foundation. And we aim to be a safety net for students who experience crises to prevent them from dropping out of college due to those crises. And the way that the program works is we have our staff located in the advising and counseling office. And the reason for that is that most students disclose crisis when they come to see an advisor, either to withdraw or just to seek resources or advice or help to navigate their situation. So that's why we're located in that office. We have a destination graduation navigator. This person is available to students on a walk-in basis, so students can just walk into the advising and counseling office and request to speak with this person. This person has access to the 211 database. If you're not familiar with that, 211 is a crisis hotline that is administered by United Ways locally, and it has information and resources in the community from everything like shelters, where to get food, food pantries, health insurance, low-cost clinics, filing your taxes for free. So it's a really good resource for the community, and college students, specifically Seminole State students, have access to this database on site. So instead of calling 211 and waiting on a queue, they can walk in and have access to this information right on site. Then this person also completes a pre-assessment for students if they have a need, such as rent assistance, utility assistance, car repairs assistance. And then they see a case manager, and the case manager does an assessment of the student, both financially and academically. And we go ahead and give them funds for whatever need they may have. This is a one-time intervention. So usually the student must have had a crisis that led them to visit our office, such as losing their job, losing hours, having their financial aid delayed, which are things that happen commonly to everyone. But when you're a student who is a low-income student, or a student who's a veteran, or a student that is a parent, this may become a big crisis for you, because usually you might live paycheck to paycheck or something like that. And then this process has led us to increase re-enrollment and graduation rates at Seminole State.
I'm going to share some information with you regarding the requests that we have received through Destination Graduation and our students in need. So the slide that you're seeing now is a funding breakdown since 2015, when we started the program, through about mid-fall semester, this 2018. These are students who are able to complete a case management appointment. And as you can see from this screen, 35% of them had requested housing. And we typically see that there are students who are requesting assistance with their rent for a month, or their mortgage or something like that, due to a break in pay or work hours. You can also see that we get an equal amount of requests for utilities and internet. And then also we get requests for tuition. So we do have on occasions where our financial aid is maybe not dispersed in a timely manner, and or perhaps the Veterans Administration has not administered their aid as well. And our students are relying on that for their rent or their utilities. We work very closely with our financial aid office, so we also refer students over to our financial aid director, who also assists with using financial aid fee monies and other grants. But this just gives you a breakdown of the type of requests that we're seeing based on the needs of our students.
Jan, what you're bringing up that I love is a lot of times people tend to think about student financial barriers as being tuition related. And what you're showing is that beyond what the financial aid is saying, there's all of these other life needs that you're seeing through this program.
Yeah, there's a variety of different things that we're seeing, and I would say that most of the requests that we fund, what you're seeing is requests that we receive, not necessarily checks that we've submitted, but we predominantly fund housing, apartment rent requests, some utilities requests, they're behind and it's getting ready to get turned off, and transportation, so their only means of getting to and from school and work is their car, and it's in need of repair. So it's not just tuition requests. that we assist with.
That's great. Thanks for that example.
And so to give you an example of some of the students that we see, we wanted to share this story with you. Joyce is a student we saw in 2018. When she came to destination graduation, she was on the verge of losing her affordable rental home. I don't know where everyone is from, but here in Central Florida, we have an affordable housing crisis. And while Joyce was living in an affordable place, losing her job led her to be on the verge of also losing her home. And if she lost this home, it would be really hard for her to find another one that was as affordable. Um, she decided to sign up for Uber and Lyft to catch up with the expenses. And while what she was making was enough to cover her current expenses, it wasn't enough for her to catch up with what she had fallen behind. And so she came to us and we did an assessment of her academics and of her finances. And we went ahead and caught her up with her rent. And she graduated at the end of the semester. And that's a picture of Joyce and her children at graduation. And like Joyce, we see many other students who have excellent academic performance. They're working hard. They have their financial aid in place. They do their due diligence, and then one day they have a car accident, or their hours get cut, or unfortunately they lose their jobs, and that puts them in a tough place financially. That also affects their academics.
That's great, Karen. Hey, Guadalupe is chiming in asking the question, who provides you with the funds to provide the service for students, for instance, for things like housing and utilities?
Yeah, that's
So
great. Oh, go ahead, Karen.
Go ahead, Jan. Go ahead.
From a college perspective, Heart of Florida United Way provides the funding for the staff to be on campus here, and the college provides the funding to pay for the rent, to pay for the car repairs. We do that through our foundation office, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. There's a couple of slides, but our foundation office has been able to fundraise with some corporations to generate that, and then we pay third-party payments. So we'll pay the apartment complex directly, or we'll pay the car replaced directly, so that the funding is going to the needs that the students have. And we work closely with our financial aid office just to make sure we don't go over the cost of attendance for those colleges who are on the call.
That's great. Thanks, Jan. And for Karen, Esmeralda was wondering, is this collaboration only available in Central Florida, or can they reach out to their local United Way to see if they have a destination graduation program as well?
So every United Way is a little bit different, but I would definitely encourage the colleges to reach out to a local United Way, even if not for funding, to have access to the 211 database on site, or to have someone trained on how to use it. And definitely for the funding, it may be a good opportunity for their United Way to partner with the local college. So I would encourage them to reach out to their local United Way and see the work that they're doing in the education area at the moment. I know every United Way does work on education, financial stability, and health. So it may be a good place to start approaching for partnerships and funding.
Wonderful. Thanks, Karen. And now I think you all have some outputs to share with us.
Yeah, real briefly, this is a snapshot of our calendar year of 2018. The program started in fall 2015 and obviously still working on it now. But this gives you a quick snapshot of who we served, the number of students that we funded. So as you can see, we don't always fund every student who comes and sees us with a need, because we do evaluate them based on their financial sustainability and their academic sustainability, and if it's really a true emergency that has occurred. We just recently got some updated numbers from Karen. And so collectively since 2015, we've actually served 980 unique individual students. 173 of those have been funded. And overall, we've funded about 139,000 emergency aid to students. And you can see outcomes here for our calendar year of 2018 showed an 84% re-enrollment rate. That's how we measure the success of the program, is if we assisted in the fall, did they come back in the spring? Overall, since 2015, our overall re-enrollment rate for students who received emergency aid is 76%, compared to 58% who did not receive funding or just had limited services. And then compared to the overall rate, and we're still updating some of our data for this fall semester, but the overall institutional is about 69%, and that includes re-enrollment from fall to spring, spring to summer, and summer to fall. So we've been able to see that our students are staying in school and have a higher re-enrollment rate than the other students who are on campus here.
Great, Jan, thanks. Philip is asking the question, how often does a student having reached cost of attendance prevent destination graduation from assisting them with their emergency needs? And then also, though the payments are made directly to the vendor, are the expenses still posted to each student's financial aid package?
So Karen and the Destination United Way staff, they provide I think it's a monthly report to our financial aid office based on that, so that their students are not going over the cost of attendance. That's something that's monitored by our financial aid director. However, we haven't had many instances where we've had to sort of take back money, so to speak, from financial aid. A lot of these circumstances, as we said, this is based on unexpected emergencies that have occurred for the students. And most of the time, our financial aid office submits a professional judgment. As you know, there's a process for that where their financial aid or income has changed since they submitted their FAFSA due to an unexpected emergency. And most of the time, she's able to make adjustments to the cost of attendance so that it is included in their financial aid cost of attendance, but we're not having to necessarily take money out. There's an adjustment that is made.
That's great. And then, oh, sorry,
another
Karen, go ahead.
thing regarding that, another thing that we're making sure we're doing is during the case management appointment, I'm letting the student know that that's a possibility. And if they want to consult the financial aid before accepting the emergency aid, they're welcome to do that. So I could reach out to the financial aid director before dispersing funds, but we also let the student know about the cost of attendance and receiving emergency aid. We make sure that they're always aware that that's a possibility and encourage them to call the financial aid about their financial aid package budget to make sure that there won't be any changes if they receive assistance.
Great. And Gabriella was wondering, do you cap the aid? And if not, how do you assist the students in handling the tax repercussions?
Can you repeat the last part?
Sure. So do you cap the aid? And if not, how do you assist the students in handling the tax repercussions?
So
are you referring to, are you referring to the aid as far as the assistance we provide? Because the average amount that we provide to students is about $800. Mm-hmm. We don't necessarily cap the aid, and that sounds like it may be a good question for our financial aid director.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so Jennifer is asking, what is your criteria for determining who is eligible? Your assessment is compared to all low-income students, or only low-income students allowed to apply?
I think Karen can update on that. I would say that all students are allowed to come into destination graduation, so it's not just low-income students, but they do evaluate that. But Karen, as previous case manager, can really talk about the criteria they utilize.
So every student who is a Seminole State College student can come in and see a Destination Graduation Navigator to have access to the 211 database and maybe even some college resources information on that. For students to qualify for a case management appointment, they have to either be a first-generation student, a low-income student, and we define low income as qualifying for any sort of federal financial aid. So if the student qualifies for Pell, for subsidized or unsubsidized loans, we consider them as a low-income student or a student who is a veteran. We do make exceptions with the low-income criteria sometimes. If, for example, we had a student not too long ago who used to be a teacher and then she lost her certification and was demoted to a paraprofessional, and now her income was cut in half. So even though according to the FAFSA results, she's not a low-income student, here, after doing our evaluation, we do know that she has in fact faced a hardship and she does need the assistance. The other two things that we take into consideration are the student's academic sustainability, and we define that as a student meeting standard academics of standard academic progress, which is what they do to keep their financial aid. So having at least a 2.0 and a 67% completion rate, or if their possibility to pay for classes depends on another kind of scholarship, we make sure that they're meeting the requirements of said scholarship that they rely on to pay for their academics. And then the other part is their financial sustainability. So because our intervention is usually a one-time assistance, we want to make sure that the student will be able to sustain after we assist them. So we look at their income versus their expenses. Are there opportunities to increase their income? Are there any benefits that they could apply for that they haven't applied for? Can they increase their work hours if that's a possibility? Can they receive some services that they're not receiving, such as subsidized childcare that would lift some weight off their budget? And that's a very thorough assessment that we do with the students. And basically, if in fact this is a one-time emergency that happened to them and they're more likely to sustain after receiving funding, then that's how we qualify them. And there is more information on that in the toolkit, and I'm going to show that in a few slides.
Okay, that's great. So why don't we get on to the next slide, which I know one of our questioners was asking about earlier, is how do you sustain the work in terms of some of that emergency aid?
When destination graduation was implemented, it was a pilot funded by the Lumina Foundation. The Lumina Foundation was looking for a pilot site where they could launch an emergency aid program and see what the results were. And Heart of Florida United Way identified Seminole State College as that pilot site. And from there, we collaborated with each other to make the program happen. During that period of time, Lumina was covering all the costs of the program. So the grant they gave us was enough to cover both the staffing and the direct assistance dollars that went to students. Once that grant period ended, we sat down again with Seminole State and started discussing sustainability possibilities to continue the program. And we reached an agreement where United Way would be in charge of sustaining the staffing of the program and some intervention dollars, but most of the intervention dollars for the students would come from Seminole State. So I'll let Jen talk about how the intervention dollars are gathered from the foundation part, but in our end, currently we have a grant from the SunTrust Foundation that covers all staffing and administrative costs of destination graduation for 3 years. And the picture you're seeing is when they gave us officially their donation to sustain the program. And then I'll let Jen discuss how the foundation gathers their dollars that we give to students.
Our foundation works closely with a lot of corporate partners to submit grant requests for emergency aid funding. We received funding previously from the Bank of America, Westgate Resorts Foundation, and AT&T Foundation, and the dollars amounts varies from $5,000 to $20,000 that we've received. We've determined over the past few years in doing this, the average for us, the average annual amount that we're spending on emergency aid, not including our financial aid referrals, is about $35,000 a year. So that's our target amount that our foundation looks for. They have worked with us as well in identifying some foundation accounts that they currently have that we're able to use as well to help pay for the emergency aid.
And I know a question that has come up before is how do you identify a partner to ask for a grant. And some of what we do is we at United Way, we work at raising funds. So we look for current partners or potential new partners who are interested or invested in education. If you look for corporations in your area that their social responsibility or their corporate responsibility interest includes education or talent pipelines or increasing financial stability, or increasing job opportunities in their community, those are good corporations to reach out to with grant proposals to fund programs like Destination Graduation.
That's great. Thank you, too. I believe it's time to share the toolkit. So let me change presenters here over to Karen. And there we go. So Karen.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
We can.
Is it on the Destination Graduation Toolkit side?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is what the Destination Graduation Toolkit looks like. This was part of our grant with the SunTrust Foundation because they do want to see other communities replicate the program and help more students graduate. So this is what the site looks like. It can be reached at destinationgraduation.org. And when you start, it gives you an overview very briefly of how the program works, which is what we discussed at the beginning. And if you go and learn more, you can see a video of us with one of our students, and you can read a little bit about what the program is and see some testimonials, both from students who have been funded and also from college staff who has worked closely with the program. Here you can also read the program evaluation that was done in 2016, I believe, and a summary report of our work in 2017. If you feel like you want to know more than that, you can always send me an email if you want to do that before you apply. Otherwise, if you go to Start Here Replicating Destination Graduation, it gives you, this is before you have a login or anything to the toolkit, which we'll go into that, but it does give you guidance on how to start the conversation at your institution and what you need to do before you apply for the toolkit. So identify the best practices, and it tells you what sites to visit to know what other colleges are doing to address hunger and homelessness in college. You have to identify a target population. So our population are low-income students. That doesn't mean that has to be your target population. Your target population could be STEM students, it could be non-traditional students, it could be female students. You can choose the target population that you want to work with if you have one. And of course, that's something that you might want to discuss with your partners. So if you're getting funds from several grantors, they might have some criteria of students that they want to support specifically. Of course, identify the funds to support the program and to fund the students. Convene a planning committee. This would be if your outlook of Destination Graduation was a partnership between a nonprofit and a college. You want to have everyone discuss what kind of student you want to assist, what your criteria is going to be like, what you're going to define as success, and all those details before you actually launch the program. Also, you want to have a sustainability work group, and this will be people who will help you identify funders, grantors, possibly someone who can write grants for the program as well. Again, if your outlook of Destination Graduation ends up being a partnership, you want to develop a memorandum of understanding between the parts where you define the responsibilities of everyone involved. And if you're going to be sharing data among yourselves, you might want to establish what data you want to share and to what extent. You are going to need an on-campus working space, and this does have a little bit of background as to whether students will use the service or not, depending on whether it is on-site or not. So when we first launched Destination Graduation, students would call 211, which was available to them 24/7, but they would meet the case manager at another agency called Catholic Charities that we partner with. The issue with that was that oftentimes when students were in crisis, they didn't have the gas money to drive to this agency. Perhaps they didn't even have a car, so they had to ride the bus to go there. This agency was located in Orlando. Seminole State is in Sanford and Altamont. So it was an issue of access. So we strongly encourage that the services are available on campus. It was a dramatic difference in use of the program between when it was located off-site than when we brought it on-site. At first, we were serving very few students, and now we're serving over 300 students per year since we moved the program on-site. So we want to emphasize on having an on-campus space where students can meet, and that this space is also private so that students can feel comfortable discussing their issues and have privacy. Of course, then you would hire and train your staff. That should be your case manager and the person who will be doing your intakes. And then implement the DG Navigator and case management procedures, which is what is on the back end of the toolkit. Before you apply for access, which is right here in this application section, we do have an option where you can take an assessment to see if you're ready to launch the program. It's not mandatory that you use this self-assessment tool, but it does kind of help you know if you're ready to launch, or it gives you a to-do list of things you might want to do or explore before you look at the other side of the toolkit and start thinking about those things as well. So we ask you to have identified a community or population that you want to work with. We ask if you have the funding. We ask if you have identified a committee that is going to establish all the protocols and monitor the progress of the program, at least at the beginning of it. And so far, and so on, we have 9 questions of, for example, leadership buy-in, which is really important. Does the college leadership believe in having this program or these services on campus? And does the leadership at the nonprofit you may be partnering with, do they also have an interest in keeping this program or establishing this program? After that, you can go on the application section. The application is not very long. It's just contact information from the nonprofits and colleges partnering. And then we do ask that if you're going to replicate Destination Graduation, we would like to see the data that you collect. So there's a short memorandum of understanding that your community would agree to share some data about how your program went. And that would include your measure of success. So if your measure of success is re-enrollment rates, then you would share what those were for your first year, and you would also share if you had any milestones or lessons learned that maybe we didn't go through. We're also interested in hearing about those. I am going to log in to show what the back end of the toolkit looks like, and this is what you would have access to. So here you can see that you can search for specific things if you're looking for those. We share the theories behind our practice. So we go by the strengths-based perspective. We're always looking at what the strengths of the student are and what they can do, what so they can use their strengths to solve their problem. And we also use the 7 stages crisis intervention model that is used in social work. We have a section on implementing the resources, and it tells you what 211 on campus looks like. It gives you a job description for whenever you want to hire that person, what you're looking for. It gives you the checklist that we give to students when they are coming into an appointment. It gives you the pre-screening. So these are the questions that we ask the students to see if they would qualify for an appointment. So are you a student? Are you an active student? Have you received a case management appointment in the last 30 days? Are you a low-income student? Are you requesting assistance with tuition and textbooks? Do you have income? Do you have valid ID? Etc. We also show you the data that we collect from students. So we ask them if they have met with us that year. We collect their student number, of course. We collect their employment status, their age, whether they have children. And so you also have a section on case management. And here is the criteria that we use. We talk about access to student records. So if your destination graduation program is in fact a partnership between a college and a nonprofit, how do you give those nonprofit employees access to the students' records? And we show you an example of a release of information that the students sign. And also the contingent employee agreement. So United Way employees that work directly with students are contingent employees of Seminole State College and are trained on FERPA regulations, and that allows us to have access to student records to evaluate their case. And there's an example of the memorandum of understanding between United Way and Seminole State to run the program, the cost, and to share data. And we go into explaining how we approve students, what our payment process is. Like Jen mentioned before, we do send the payments to the vendors directly. So we send the payments to the landlord or to the car repair shop or to the utility company directly. Because United Way has other emergency assistance programs, usually we send a guarantee of payment prior to issuing the check. And then we get a W-9 from the agency, and then we send the check. But this is just an example of the payment process that we have. I've heard of other colleges that use a credit card from their college foundation. In our case, we mail checks to the companies. Some other resources that we give you are how to handle students who are denied, and there are other handouts here. This is everything that happens during the case management assessment, step by step. And so we also talk about how to market your program to make sure that the students know that this is available to them, and also how to market your program to get funds. And we give some examples of how we do that, how we present our data, the formats that we do, interactive games that we do with our audiences so they understand how students fall into crisis. And we have examples of our reports. We also have examples of how and why we collect data items, how we define our outcomes, and other data that we collect, such as satisfaction survey. And the purpose of this is to make sure that the students are getting good customer service. Even though the students are there because they have a need, we want to make sure that the staff working with students directly is treating the students with dignity, that the students feel like they're being listened to, like they're being respected, and also like we follow up with them. After their case management appointment, we follow up to see how they're doing. Is there anything else they need? Are there any other resources we need to provide? And a lot of the students, more than half of the students actually do answer the survey and complete it. And we've had so far, thankfully, good satisfaction rates from students. And then we also talk about sustainability, which I know we discussed before during the presentation. And basically what we say is that sustainability is an ongoing process. And we talk about how to gather funds both from a nonprofit perspective and from the college perspective. And give you some examples of that, such as applying for grants or having community corporate partnerships. And Jen, I don't know if there's anything you want to share about the section you wrote on higher education institutions perspective. Hello?
Yes, I'm still here. There's a lot of information, I think, and resources that are available online from the higher institutions perspective. I know that we have a few minutes left in regards to the webinar, so we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to answer any additional questions that you have. So you can find this information online, and I'm happy to contact you if you have specific questions for me after the webinar as well.
Okay, and then thank you, Jan. And then the rest of it is just additional resources for reading and our index of templates where you can find all the templates that we use in the program day to day. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Kathy.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So let me switch over, show my screen. Okay, hopefully you all are seeing my screen now. As you can see, there's just so much there that it's tough to cover it all in, 1 hour webinar, but clearly a lot there and worth digging into. If you want to know more, Karen is going to be doing a tool session at our summit, which is May 7th and 8th in Orlando. I encourage you to join us there. We're going to be opening it up for questions in a minute. If this topic in particular is of interest to you, we have a lot of sessions at the summit that are very aligned with this work. We have a poverty simulation on Tuesday morning. Our keynote, I'm just a super big fan of Dr. Russell Lowry Hart. He created the culture of caring at Amarillo College. He's the president there and created the No Excuses Poverty Initiative that is transforming his college in terms of not letting low income status be the reason why somebody doesn't complete a credential. So he's amazing. And then finally, we'll also be hearing from Hillsborough Community College. We'll be sharing their on-campus food pantry and how they partnered to get that set up and serve their students. So if you're not already registered for the summit and interested in joining us there, the early bird rate for that is up April 5th, which I believe is a week from Friday. So you'll want to join us quickly. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. Let me share my webcam. We have several that came in. From Bill, he's asking, how do you report benefits to the students so they can claim these on their taxes?
We do not. It would be up to the student to report this as additional assistance or a charitable support under taxes as well as under FAFSA application. We do get a W-9 from the vendors and send them a 1099 at the end of the year for the vendors' tax filing purposes, but we do not ask the student anything about their taxes.
Okay, great. Thanks. And you're actually getting a shout out. Gabby from Palm Beach is sharing that the toolkit is incredible, and the Heart of Florida United Way were hugely instrumental in the launch of the Student Urgent Relief Fund here in Palm Beach County. So kudos to you there. Philip is
Thank
asking
you.
how do we access the toolkit on the website?
So to access the toolkit, we would give you a login to you and everyone in your institution who will be involved in implementing destination graduation. You would have to complete the application where you just put your contact information and, of course, agree to share data with us.
Okay, great. And Jan, how are you able to get the college to embrace leveraging external partners? What I see is some colleges think they have to do it all themselves and come up with the money and figure out how to all of a sudden be a 211 case manager. So what process did you go through in terms of helping get other leaders at Seminole State College to embrace partnering up with an external partner?
I think it was, I would say it was fairly easy. One was that we didn't have the resources to staff it ourselves, to get new full-time positions, to do the case manager, and to do the work. And to be frankly honest with you, the grant was set up with the Lumina Foundation, and United Way reached out to us to have a conversation about it. So I can't say it was a thoughtful process for us at the very beginning, but what we found is that partnering with United Way and other agencies really helps connect the students to community resources. That's not our area of expertise, and we realize that. And so through the 211, they can assist students with resources, and maybe they don't all need emergency need. Doing it on our own, we don't have that level of resources or access to it. So the partnership just fit, and the results showed that it has been successful.
Great, thanks for sharing that. Lisa shared, do instructors at the college know about destination graduation so they can share the information if they recognize a struggling student?
Yes, we work with our academic affairs partners, and so one of the things that we did at the very beginning was trying to get the word out. How do we let the entire campus know about this resource for students? We intentionally put it in the advising and counseling suite, and based on the data that we receive, about 65% of the students who come into destination graduation are referred by an advisor or counselor. But another 20% is actually referred by faculty or staff because we've been able to communicate that with them. We do that in a number of ways. So we work with our academic affairs partners and our faculty center. So when there is faculty training, we kind of insert ourselves and talk about destination graduation. And frankly, our faculty are seeing this with students in the classroom. They're seeing that they need assistance, that they need help, and they don't know what to do. And so they typically end up calling someone in student affairs, and we let them know about that. So we've been able to really market it over the years with people across campus so they know about the resource to them.
That's a great example, and especially when you begin to see the extent of the need, it
Mm-hmm.
really does need to. I mean, I know you've had success with it being in the academic advisor's office, but the extent of the need really makes you realize everyone needs to know that how to recognize a student in who's struggling, and then how to get them assistance. So that's
Right.
great
And the
to hear.
faculty see them every day in the classroom. So they're the
That's
ones
right.
who have that one-on-one contact because they're not seeing their academic advisors or specialists or tutors every single day. But they're seeing their faculty at least once, if not twice a week, who can really help with that resource. So it's just a matter of communicating and letting faculty know about the options that are available to students.
That's great. Great example. Um, I think this question's for Karen. What are the lessons, well, really both of you, what are the lessons you learned along the process? Because I know you didn't just come out of the box and have it all figured out. So what were some of the lessons you learned along the way? And then how did you go about building some of those lessons into the toolkit?
Karen, do you want to start off?
So I think one of the main and most important lessons is to bring resources to the campus
Mm-hmm.
because when students are in crisis, oftentimes they don't have the resources to go to a place outside of the campus, whether that's a food pantry or an agency for case management. And also students are not very likely to pick up the phone and talk to someone in 211 and be on the queue for a while. So they like, and it definitely increases the use of the program if you have those services on campus available for the students when they need them.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. I know when the program first started, we had a similar issue where we were referring students off campus to 211 resources, and both of the two circumstances were students who were homeless, and so they really didn't have a way to get to this other location to get assistance, and we realized having it on campus was one of the most important things that we've done. I think the other thing that we've improved and worked on is our relationship with our financial aid office. That's really important with the emergency aid funding. We've got a great financial aid director, and so she's extremely supportive of the program, but there is funding sometimes available in financial aid fee monies that can assist with tuition and books and scholarships where we don't have to utilize our financial aid or our foundation money to pay for emergency aid. So there's a great partnership with your financial aid office, and I think strengthening that has been a real improvement as well.
Wonderful. Donna is sharing that not a question, but a sincere appreciation for this awesome sharing of the program information, making it likely for many of us to explore and replicate this tremendous support for students. So clearly you have fans out there, which is great.
Thank you.
If you were, where do you go from here? What's the next evolution? What's the next way to help even more students?
I think that we're expanding services. I mean, I have a lot of ideas. So, beyond our emergency aid program, we've been able to add a food pantry to campus. And so we've been able to help with that. We've partnered with Second Harvest Food Bank to be able to do food pantry on our Sanford Lake Mary campus, but then also have resources at other campuses as well. And then we also do, I would say, completion grants so that we can assist students who are near graduation and maybe they've maxed out their financial aid, but they just need a couple $100 to be able to take a class. So I think that's where we go. Personally, one of the things or visions that I have is we have a lot of students who are utilizing these nonprofit agencies and community resources. And if we're referring them from 211, they are going off campus to a location within Seminole County. I'd love to be able to set up office space or other spaces where we can bring in forced fee so that students can process their child care paperwork or subsidies so that it's a little easier for students to do that on campus versus making them run out into the community to 2 or 3 different places to get the resources they need.
Nice. And I think that's essentially what Dr. Russell Laurie Hart at Amarillo did, is they
Yes.
kind of brought it into a central location and have all the services.
Like a community hub. So,
Right.
Something that I'm personally considering and thinking about how we could do that on our campus.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, I know we're wrapping up here. So Karen, any final thoughts on that?
No, we just hope to continue growing, always trying to increase awareness on campus and reduce stigma as much as possible so students feel comfortable reaching out when they're in need and creating a culture of caring because we care of them. We care about them, not just as a student, but as a person.
Right. That's wonderful. And I'm so grateful to both of you for sharing this because I would love to see this populate throughout the state of Florida and beyond, especially when you find something that's evidence-based like this that shows, yes, it's not just, hey, we gave somebody some aid and we think they stayed, but you're actually demonstrating the results out the other end. The student example that you shared earlier was priceless. I think a lot of times people don't realize that somebody can truly be that close to finishing and potentially stop out because of one of these types of life emergencies. So many thanks to both of you, not only for having the vision to create this, having the vision to create this and then to put the toolkit together. I know that was no small ask.
Thank you.
Many thanks to you all.
Just quickly.
Yeah, sure.
Just quickly for everyone, just a reminder, it is destinationgraduation.org. Just wanted to make sure everyone goes. You can go check it out. There are many things available to you before the application where you can read and learn more. And we hope to see you there and see your applications.
That's great. And we're also hoping to hear you measure your results so that we can show that this continues to have impact. So with that, thank you all for joining us today. It's been a great session, and we'll see you at our next webinar and hopefully at the FCAN Summit in May. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.